Section 22 of the Golden Porch. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Golden Porch by W. M. L. Hutchinson. The Builders of Troy. Chapter 2. When Aeacus came back to his island, heavy tidings were brought to him, for it had chanced that while his 3 sons were playing at quoits, the eldest threw his quoit slantwise, and it struck the youngest on the head, and killed him. Now the 2 elder were the sons of their father's first wife, but the youngest, whose name was Phocus, was the child of their stepmother. So when the 2 elder princes saw that their half-brother was dead, they fled out of the island, for their father loved him the best, and they feared lest he should believe they had murdered the lad out of jealousy. These princes were called Telamon and Peleus, and the adventures that befell Peleus are told to you already. But Telamon, the eldest, was betrothed to the daughter of a king who ruled the island called Salamis, and to that island he fled, while Peleus went to seek his fortune in distant lands. There Telamon took a solemn oath that he had slain Phocus by mischance, and the king of Salamis purified him of the blood guilt by prayer and sacrifice, as the manner was, and promised to give him his daughter in marriage when he had mourned for his brother a year and a day. Before that time, however, the king fell sick and died, and because he had no son the folk of Salamis chose Telamon to rule over them in his stead. Thus he became king, and at the year's end he married the princess. On his marriage day Telamon held a great feast in his house, to which all the men of the island were bidden, both rich and poor, and while they sat at his table one of his servants told him that a stranger stood at the gate, desiring to speak with him. "What manner of man is he?" said Telamon, "and why do you not bring him into the hall?" "He seems in haste to depart, O king," said the servant, "and as for who or what he is, we know not, but he is strangely arrayed. He has no garment but a lion's skin girt about him, and carries the hugest bow that ever man saw." "It is the noble Heracles!" cried Telamon, "my father's friend and mine," and he ran to the gate to welcome him. Heracles, for he it was indeed, at first excused himself from coming in to the banquet, saying that he had come on other business than merry-making, as might be seen from his rough garb. "You shall tell me of that when you have eaten and drunk," said Telamon, "for it is ill talking to a full man in a fasting. Come, you shall not deny me this. You must know, is my marriage feast, and it is a lucky chance that brings me such a guest to grace it." With that he brought Heracles into the hall, and set him in the seat of honour, and the feast went merrily on. Then when all had had their fill of good cheer, Telamon bade his cupbearer fill a great golden cup with wine, and, taking the goblet, he gave it into the hand of Heracles, saying, "My noble guest, pour out now the accustomed libation, for you are worthier than I." And thereby he paid Heracles the highest mark of honour, since it was his own right, as lord of the feast, to pour out the first drink offering to the gods. Now the custom of the drink offering was that when men began carousing after a feast, their cups were filled thrice with wine, and at each filling 1 cup was poured out to some god with a prayer for blessing, but always the first cup of those 3 was offered to Zeus. Heracles took the golden goblet and rose up, and thus he prayed as he poured the wine on the ground. "Hear me now, king of the gods, if ever prayer of mine could win your grace. Grant that a son may be born to Telamon, my friend, as brave in soul and as strong in body as the lion whose hide I wear, even that mighty beast I slew at Nemea, in the first of my fights with savage monsters." Even as he spoke an eagle flew into the hall, through the open doors, perched a moment on the oaken rafters, and flew forth again. "Rejoice, Telamon!" cried Heracles, "for Zeus has sent his own bird in sign that he will grant my prayer. You will have the son your heart secretly longs for, and when he is born, call him, I charge you, after the eagle." Heracles said this with rapt look and chanting voice, like a seer when the spirit of prophecy comes over him, and forthwith he sat down. Presently Telamon asked him what that errand was that brought him to Salamis. But Heracles said, "I came to call you to a fray, and little thought to light on a wedding feast. Let us speak of the matter tomorrow, for I will not mar these revels with talk of bloodshedding." So on the morrow he told Telamon that he needed a warrior comrade to sail with him to Troy and fight against Laomedon, who had used him very evilly, and Telamon was so eager to share the adventure that he commanded a ship to be made ready, took leave of his bride, and set sail with Heracles that very day. Laomedon heard news of their landing, and went out to give them battle with all his men. That day those 2 valiant comrades did wonderful feats of arms, and, with the crew of one ship, they fought the whole army of Troy, until they drove them in flight to their walls. Many were slain as they fled, but Laomedon and the greater part of his host escaped into the city, and barred the gates behind them. Then, shouting his war cry in a voice like thunder, Telamon sprang to the wall, and, in the very spot where the serpent crossed it, he battered it down with the butt end of his spear, and rushed through the breach, calling Heracles to follow. And Heracles came after, bending his terrible bow, and shot Laomedon through the heart in the midst of the city. When the people saw their king fall, there was no more spirit in them. "Troy is taken!" they cried, and implored mercy of their conquerors. Thus did vengeance overtake that treacherous king. Heracles took all the treasures of his house, and all the wealth of the city, and divided the spoil, giving a due portion to all his followers. Now 3 sons of Laomedon were slain in the fight, but his youngest, who was yet a child, was found hiding in the palace with his sister, the Princess Hesione, and they were brought as captives to Heracles. The princess wept and wrung her hands, crying, "Alas, great champion, will you slay this child for his father's sin?" "Nay, princess," said Heracles, "that would be far from me. I would set him free, for my own part, but my comrades have a right to divide the captives among them by lot. Nevertheless, you shall ransom him at a price from the man to whom the lot gives him. As for yourself, I may claim you for my own prize, because I am leader." Then they drew lots for all the captives, and the little prince fell to the lot of Telamon. "Chieftain," said Hesione, "what ransom will you take for my brother?" "I will take the gold broidered veil you wear," said Telamon. So Hesione ransomed her brother for that price, and gave him in charge to the elders of the city to be brought up. From that day the child was called Priam, which means bought with a price, and when he grew up he reigned as king in Troy. But Hesione was glad when she heard she was the prize of Heracles, for she had loved him since he delivered her from being cast to the sea monster, and she said to him, "It were hateful to me to abide here now my father is dead. Let me follow you whithersoever you are going, my lord." "Fairest Hesione," said Heracles, "I am a wanderer on the earth, and my road lies in perilous places, where I cannot take a maiden. I will send you with Telamon to Salamis, and for my sake he will treat you well. But as for me, I am going even now on another adventure." "I go not home without you, my comrade," cried Telamon. "Never shall it be said that I returned with spoils and captives, leaving you to face new dangers alone. Take me in your quest, whatever it be, and let me have the glory of fighting twice at the side of Heracles." Then Heracles consented, and when Telamon had sent his ship home with Hesione and the other captives, and the booty, the 2 friends went eastward to the country of the Amazons. For the king whom Heracles served had bidden him fetch for his daughter the golden girdle of the Amazon queen. Now the Amazons were a nation of women, who suffered no men to come into their country, and they were warriors all, armed with brazen bows, and riding fierce swift horses. But how Heracles, with help of Telamon, overcame them is a great battle, and took the girdle of their queen, who fell fighting, and what else the comrades did before they came back to Salamis belongs to another tale. Here we tell only of the building of Troy and what came of it. A whole year was Telamon away, and when he came again to his house he found it full of mirth and gladness, because the son was born for whom Heracles prayed. Telamon remembered his friend's bidding, and called the child Ajax, which means the eagle in the old speech of that land. And Ajax grew up a mighty youth, according to the prayer of Heracles, with a fearless soul that matched his stalwart body. Meanwhile King Aeacus heard all these things in Aegina, and sent for his son Telamon, desiring to be reconciled to him before he died. When the ship he had sent returned, Aeacus went down to the harbour to meet it, and saw his son standing on the deck, holding the young Ajax in his arms, and they greeted again with tears. But Telamon would not set foot on shore till he had solemnly called the gods to witness that he was guiltless of murdering Phocus, his brother. Now while Telamon sojourned in Aegina, the time came for good King Aeacus to die, and in his last hour he bade his son bring the child Ajax to him, and then he told the marvel he had seen at the building of Troy's wall, and how Apollo foretold from the sign of the 3 serpents that the city should twice be taken by warriors of his house, and the second time be utterly laid low. "The gods grant," he said, laying his hand on the head of Ajax, "that this my grandchild may prove to be that 3rd serpent, the conqueror." But that prayer was vain, for the fate of Ajax was otherwise ordained. He went indeed with the great host that beleaguered Troy in days to come, and of all the champions who fought in the long war none did more valiant deeds than he, except Achilles, the son of Peleus. But those two were the two warriors sprung from Aeacus, whose doom was foreshadowed by the death of the first two serpents. Who, then, was the third, the golden crested, who sprang with a cry of victory over the new built wall? In the tale of Peleus and Thetis, it was told how Achilles wedded the king's daughter of the isle where his mother hid him, and left her, a mourning bride, to follow the way of glory. And he, the flower of all heroes, found death, and deathless flame on the battlefield of Troy, and never saw the child whom the king's daughter bore to him in Scyros. Then came a prophecy to the Greek host that the city should never be taken without help of the son of Achilles, and they sent and fetched the young prince to their camp. The comrades of his father beheld the lad with mingled joy and pain, so like he was to their lost chief, and when he led them to the fight in shining arms, and flew lion-like upon the foes, the cry went up that Achilles was come back to life, and in no long time all Apollo's word to Aeacus was fulfilled, for that golden-haired youth was the golden-crested conquering serpent who appeared to the builders of Troy. The End. End of section 22, read by Inkel. End of The Golden Porch by W. M. L. Hutchinson.